Hello everyone, I'm Akanksha, and today we are going to be talking about one of the most debated topics in GEO, that is whether llms.txt files influence AI visibility or not. And to be able to discuss this topic in the first place, we have studied numerous research papers that talked about llms.txt files directly. These research papers had conducted their own experiments, they had their own hypotheses, and we just tried to replicate those experiments on a smaller scale to validate what they found and to assess if these files actually influence AI visibility. So in this presentation, we are going to walk you through everything that we found out. But before we get to those experiments, let's first discuss what is an llms.txt file. An llms.txt file is a markdown standard that was first proposed by Jeremy Howard, who is an Australian data scientist. These files are placed in the root domain of your website. So if you have a website, say salesforce.com, you will be publishing it at salesforce.com/llms.txt. You can use the same logic to fetch an llms.txt file from any other brand. For example, if you want to view llms.txt file of money.com, you can simply type money.com/llms.txt. The only condition is that that brand should have already published the llms.txt file. Otherwise, you won't be able to view it. llms.txt files help AI bots to understand the content of your website. The core idea behind creating an llms.txt file is that you have to include all the priority or the most important web pages on your website that you want AI bot to crawl through and to fetch content from when it is writing an AI answer. So instead of AI bot traversing through your entire website, you list all the important pages, you compile all those pages in a single document and you give it to AI to quickly understand the contents of your website. This is an example of a typical llms.txt file. This was Concurate's file. As you can see, there is a certain hierarchy, a certain structure to this file because the core idea is to make it easy for AI bots to understand the llms.txt file. So structure is non-negotiable. First up, we have the h1 tag, which is denoted by the single hashtag. And we have Concrete, the brand name, as the H1. This is followed by a block quote style summary where you talk about what your brand is, services your brand provides, what you do, etc., etc. The idea behind this is to simply provide a short summary for AI bots to quickly understand who you are and what you do. Beyond the summary, we have the H2s, or groups of different types of sections or the different types of important pages that we want AI bots to fetch content from. So first we have services because we think our services pages are highly important for us. Similarly, we have case studies URLs compiled in this document because again, case studies are very important and we want AI to fetch answers from these case studies. So this is how an llms.txt. Moving on to experiment 1. In this experiment, our goal was to check if llms.txt files increase AI visibility across 4 funnel stages, which are awareness, interest, consideration, and purchase. Now, when we say AI visibility, we mean brand mentions and domain citations. Brand mentions refer to the number of times your brand is being mentioned by AI when it's answering a particular query, and domain citations refers to the number of times your unique website or your unique web page from your domain is being cited as a source for that answer. So this is what we were testing. And for each funnel stage, we have written one prompt and we ran that prompt through different AI tools. And we simply calculated the number of times the brands that we were comparing, the number of times these brands popped up, their names popped up and how many times unique URLs from their domains were being cited in the answer. That is what we compared. For this experiment, we chose 3 AI platforms: Google AI Overviews, Perplexity, and ChatGPT. And the brands we picked were Trello and Money.com. Trello does not have an llms.txt file, while Money.com does. And both of these brands, they have a similar domain authority score as per Ahrefs. Now, here is a quick example of how our prompts looked. This is the prompt for awareness stage. The prompt was, how do people manage work when 5 different tools are involved? And when AI gave us the answer, we quickly compared how many times each brand name was being mentioned and how many unique URLs from their domains were being cited. And we counted that. And we we decided who the winner was. But before we get to the conclusion, let's quickly see the data proof. Now, the first stage, awareness. Prompt was, how do people manage work when 5 different tools are involved? As you can see, ChatGPT, we did not get any brand mentions, any domain citations across both the brands. While for Perplexity, we got one brand mentions for Monday.com, and in Google AI overviews, we got one brand mention for Trello. Now, I want you to focus more on ChatGPT over here as we move to different stages, because we are going to see a particular pattern pricing. Now, the next stage, a prompt was, what does project management software actually do, and is it worth for my team? As you can see, we see a steady rise in the number of brand mentions and domain citations for ChatGPT for both the brands. For Perplexity, the same kind of thing happens. However, for Google AI overviews, we do not see a much difference as compared to the previous stage. Again, note that in ChatGPT, both Monday.com and Trello have one brand mention and one domain citation each. Now, as we go down the marketing funnel, we see that while the AI visibility of Monday.com remains the same for ChatGPT, Trello hits all zero. For Perplexity, we see a much higher increase in brand mentions for Monday.com, while Trello hits all zero. For Google AI overviews, we see Monday.com being mentioned once. The last stage was purchase. And for this stage, we wrote 2 prompts, one for each brand. And since our prompts were already leading, that is, we had already mentioned the brand name in the prompt itself, we decided to discount brand mentions for this stage because it did not make sense for us to count how many times the brand was being mentioned when the question was already tailored to that particular brand. So we only focused on domain citations. And as you can see, Money.com's domain citations are much higher than that of Trello for ChatGPT. However, for both Perplexity and Google AI overviews, Trello is the winner. Now, before we move to the conclusion, we want to show you something really interesting that we found during the consideration stage in Google AI overviews. We saw that Toggl was being cited as the topmost source across the entire answer. Now, the interesting part is that Toggl is not a project management tool. It's essentially a time tracking software. It lacks an llms.txt file, and its domain authority score as per Ahrefs is lower than that of Monday.com and Trello. So it lacks all the main things, yet Google AI Overviews prioritizes Toggl. It cites content from Toggl. So that speaks a lot about what Google AI Overviews actually prioritizes. Moving on to the conclusion, it was clear to us that for ChatGPT, llms.txt files increase AI visibility, especially as we go down the marketing funnel, because we saw that Monday.com, a brand with an llms.txt file, it secured a higher number of domain citations inside ChatGPT as compared to Trello. For Perplexity, we saw a similar trend in the sense that both brand mentions and domain citations did increase as we go down the marketing funnel. However, it was not because of llms.txt files, because sometimes it was Monday.com that was being cited more, sometimes it was Trello. So that relation is still hazy and unclear for Perplexity. For Google AI overviews, it was extremely clear that llms.txt files, they do not influence AI visibility at all. Moving on to the second experiment. The goal of this experiment was to check the impact of llms.txt on AI visibility across 2 main types of AI searches. Number 1, general question and answers. Number 2, product recommendations. And for this experiment, we chose Claude and ChatGPT as our AI platforms. We compared 3 brands, HubSpot, Salesforce, and Pipedrive. HubSpot does not have an llms.txt file, but it has the strongest domain authority score and the strongest backlink profile. Salesforce sits on number 2. It has an llms.txt file, and it has a slightly weaker domain authority score and backlink profile as compared to that of HubSpot. Pipedrive comes in at last. It has an llms.txt file, and it has the weakest DA and the weakest backlink profile in this set. Now, moving on to the main experiment, what we did was, for each type of task, that is general QA and product recommendation, we wrote a prompt. We ran that prompt across the 2 AI tools that we have mentioned before, and we simply compared the number of times each brand was being mentioned and how many unique URLs from their domain were being cited. Pretty similar to what we did in the first experiment. So as you see, for task 1, we wrote the prompt, how do CRMs automate lead generation? It is an awareness stage prompt, and as you can see, none of the brands got mentioned even once. However, Salesforce got cited twice in the general Q&A. Moving on to the next task, product recommendation. Our prompt was recommend 3 best CRM software for my mid-sized B2B sales team. And as it's clear, HubSpot and Pipedrive, they got recommended the most, they got mentioned the most. However, it was only Salesforce that secured the highest citation count for this type of task. So it was clear to us that Salesforce was getting cited again and again, higher number of times. But why was it so? Upon analyzing their llms.txt file, we found out that Salesforce had listed 464 blocks in its llms.txt file. And when we compared the types of URLs that were being cited in the sources, we found that yes, most of them were actually blogs and not their priority or their core pages like homepage, about estates, etc. Most of them were blogs. So in conclusion, the fact that HubSpot was being recommended the most, that showed us that traditional SEO still matters and dominates the AI visibility game. However, the fact that Salesforce got cited more and the types of URLs that were listed in its llms.txt files, AI platforms like Claude and ChatGPT favored those particular URLs. That proved us that llms.txt files, they do make it easier for LLMs to understand your website. Now, before we sum it up, there is one more thing that we found, and that is unique sections in various llms.txt files that we analyzed during this research. Number one, list of language specific URLs. Tropics and Pipedrive's llms.txt files, they mention a list of different languages their web pages are available in. So if you have a website and its contents are available in different languages, this definitely you can consider when you're creating an llms.txt file for your brand. Number two, inclusion of llms-full.txt URLs. In Anthropic's llms.txt file, we saw that at the bottom of the file, they have mentioned the link to their llms-full.txt file, which is nothing but a more comprehensive version of llms.txt file. Basically, in llms-full.txt, you mention the entire content of each and every web page that you have already listed in llms.txt. That is the only difference, and Anthropic has linked out to this detailed version in its original llms.txt file as well. Number three, explicit instructions for AI agents. In llms.txt file, we saw that they were handing out instructions for AI agents so that they could easily read this llms.txt file in the first place. I mean, the entire concept of having an llms.txt file is to make it easy for AI bots to understand your website. But LF went a step further and they made it easy for AI bots to understand the llms.txt file in the first place. So this was the most interesting section to us. So do llms.txt files influence AI visibility? Yes, they do. But for platforms like ChatGPT and Claude, Google AI Overviews definitely does not depend on llms.txt files to fetch content. But for ChatGPT and for Claude, we did see a particular pattern. And we saw that as you go down the marketing funnel, the brands that have llms.txt files, they get cited more and more. They get mentioned more and more. However, that does not mean that having an llms.txt file will get your brand cited in AI. What really matters is a solid SEO strategy. You need to build your domain authority, you need to build your editorial authority, and you need to have a foolproof website. Only then implementing an llms.txt file on top of that will get you cited in the AI search. So that was all for today, and meet you next time soon. Bye-bye.